With 9:45 having arrived, I'd like to call the County Board meeting for Tuesday, May 8th to order. I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Allen. Present. Auger. Here. Barrero. Here. Davis. Here. Ford. Here. Fries. Here. Gillum. Here. Hernandez. Here. Holshite. Here. Ishmael. Kenyon. Here. Kazarek. Here. Leonard. Here. Lewis. Here. Martin. Here. Molina. Sanchez. Here. Shefflo. Here. Silva. Here. Smith. Here. Sterrett. Thomas. Here. Wegman. Here. Wanicki. Here. We have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. I'd like to introduce first two people who are going to lead us in both the pledge and the prayer. The first person who's going to come forward with the pledge is Health Department Assistant Director of Community Health, Mike Isaacson. Mike has worked for the county for many years, outstanding work, and he was instrumental in helping the City of Aurora to change their ordinance to raise the age for tobacco purchases to 21. Then, for our prayer this morning, I'd like to ask Nick Scanlon, who's no stranger to many of you, to come to the microphone to lead us in prayer. Nick was born and raised in Aurora, went to Marmion Military Academy, attended Aurora University, and is now a financial advisor with Stiefel Nicholas here in Geneva, just off 3rd Street. You may remember that while in college, Nick was part of the team that pioneered Kane County Connects, that initiative, and said that he's excited to see that it's still going strong. He's a big fan of Rick Nagels. So thank you, too, for joining us today. Now, would you please rise and remain standing for the pledge and the prayer?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. God, we pray for our county board members, our chairman, and all those who have a hand in serving the Kane County community. Give them wisdom and strength to lead and courage to seek justice for the poor and the marginalized. May you grant all of us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
I'd also like to welcome and thank Joe McMahon, who is our distinguished state's attorney. I appreciate your attending our meetings and helping us. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the April 10th, 2018 meeting? Moved by Mr. Fraz, second by Mr. Kozarek. Are there any thoughts, comments, changes? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye. And all those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, the motion passes, minutes are approved. This morning we have 3 presentations, and I would like to start out with the 2018 Marshall Thoreau Memorial Award. I'd like to invite the Supervisor of Assessments, Mark Armstrong, to come forward for the presentation, along with Doug Shefflo. Doug, if you'd come forward as the chairman of the Public Services Committee, and if you'd come on up here, that'd be good. I'm going to give a little bit of background. I guess that, okay, good. And Doug, if you would hold that up. We're going to have full audience participation this morning. You know, perhaps especially this morning, when we all recognize and appreciate the work that our staff does in all agencies and departments of our county, how much we appreciate it when people are as diligent as all of you are and as Mark Armstrong is. I'd like to give you a little bit of background on the Marshall Thoreau Memorial Award. This is presented annually by the Illinois Property Assessment Institute, the state's leading organization for assessor training and education. It was founded in the name of the former Wheeling Township Assessor, Marshall Thoreau, who was a leader in the development of assessment standards, practices, and education. Mr. Thoreau died in 1980. The award recognizes a member of the Illinois assessment profession who demonstrates high ethical standards, professional achievement, and dedication to the service of others. The 2018 winner of the award is Kane County's own Supervisor of Assessments, Mark Armstrong. And he always makes sure that I understand and that everybody understands that Supervisor of Assessments, not assessors. Those are independently elected. So he is the 37th person so honored since it was established and the first assessing officer from Kane County to receive the award. Mark Armstrong has served 3 terms as Kane County Supervisor of Assessments beginning in 2006. This has been his first government job. His background includes valuing real property for the past 33 years in 5 states. His private sector practice was focused on expert testimony and valuation, zoning, and other legal matters in local, state, and federal proceedings. He chaired the St. Charles Plan Commission, St. Charles Zoning Commission, St. Charles Comprehensive Plan Task Force. Serving as the instructor for the Illinois Property Assessment Institute as being a featured speaker on assessment practices for such diverse groups as the Chicago Bar Association, Illinois Farm Bureau, Illinois Government Finance Officers Association, and the Women's Property Tax Association. Mark has put together an exceptional career. We are very grateful to have him. He also serves as the legislative chairman for both the Illinois Association of County Officials and the Illinois County Assessment Officers Association. In this capacity, he has provided expert subject matter testimony to the General Assembly on multiple occasions and has drafted a half-dozen bills amending the property tax code, which those laws have been passed into law. We do not take for granted Mark's expertise and hard work. Again today, we recognize his public service. So Mark, thank you.
There's an old saying that I'd like to say a few words, and if I could, I would be a better public speaker. I know you got a lot on your agenda today, and I see a lot of standing room only in the back, so I won't take up any time. So I'm really glad to be here. I'm happy to stay in this job. Chris asked me when he first took office where I saw myself in 5 years. I said, hopefully, I'll retire from this job some many years distant. It helps that we have a great county board, and I have an absolutely amazing staff, most of which were already here when I got here, but that's one of the reasons why we're able to be so successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next presentation is to our national award-winning county engineer. So I would like Carl Shadle to come forward. So Carl, and also Drew Fraz, if you would come. You know, as Carl is coming up, I'd like to share with you that he has been awarded the National County Engineer of the Year. I thought it was spectacular when Mr. Shadle was recognized as the Illinois Chief Engineer of the Year a couple years ago, and now of all of the US of A, we've got Carl Shadle. So I'd like to give you a little bit of background, especially for our guests this morning. Carl Shadle earned his Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering magna cum laude from Washington University in 1986, and a Master of Planning from, is it the Indiana University? Yes. I didn't want to say IUPU, but it was Illinois University of Public Administration, the School of Public and Environmental Affairs in 1995, receiving Outstanding Graduate Student Honors. With 30 years dedicated to public service, Mr. Shadle's professional background includes extensive experience in regional transportation, planning, highway engineering, and public utility management. He has conducted academic research in infrastructure and public policy, co-authored articles for the Journal of the American Planning Association, Journal of Urban Affairs, Economic Development Quarterly, and several other national publications. Carl has been instrumental in developing policy and local initiatives to provide safe and efficient transportation facilities and to safeguard public drinking water supplies. Let's see, Carl joined us in 1997, served as the Division Transportation Permit Engineer and later Chief of Planning and Programming. He was appointed as County Engineer in 2003 and then Director of Transportation in 2005. Carl has earned recognition as the 2001 Top 10 Public Works Leaders of the Year, in 2012 Zone 1 County Engineer of the Year, 2013 Government Civil Engineer of the Year, 2015 Community Involvement Award, and then in 2017 Urban County Engineer of the Year Award given by the National Association of County Engineers. Many of you might also know that Carl is active in a number of industry groups and serves as a current president of the Transportation Officials Division of the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. He also serves as the chairman of the board for CASA, Kane County, a nonprofit volunteer organization that advocates for the best interests of abused and neglected children in the juvenile court system. And as we all know, Carl is known for his exceptional sense of humor. Valuable thing.
Thanks. Well, that bio that the chairman just read, I think is the most impressive thing you'll hear today. Certainly not what I'm about to say, but no, really what I want to say here is that I know that this award has my name on it. I know this is a individual award, but really none of this is possible without all of you on the board. And the first group that I thanked when I received the award was the 65 full-time staff people of Kane County Division of Transportation. This is really all of their efforts over the last few decades when I've been present. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate Tom Rickert, who's in the audience today. He's the guy that hired me. So, you know, if you like what I do, you can thank him. If you don't like what I do, you can blame him. So I appreciate all your support, and I appreciate the recognition today.
Okay, thank you, Carl. And then finally, we have a final presentation, and it's going to have to be in absentia because this morning Don Bryant is at an exercise, a training exercise. He is the director of the Office of Emergency Management Services, and he has been with us for 23 years. And I'm very surprised because he is such a young man at heart, but he is retiring after 23 years. And he can't be with us today because duty calls, and it's just like Don to go to that rather than seek the recognition that we're so eager to give him. But we've asked Roger Fonstock to come forward this morning to accept a plaque and then get it over to Don. I just wanted to share a story that indicates what Don Bryant is like, the person who, I hope that it never happens, but when disaster hits Kane County, he'll be leading up the charge. I have an annually updated plan up in my office on a shelf where I can get to it very quickly on what all of our roles are if there is a disaster. But when I first met Don, maybe several months later, there was one of our grants, the grant funding, had gone away. And that was a part of his compensation. And I was the new guy on the block. This is like 5.5 years ago. And Don came to me and he said, you know, Chris, part of my compensation is this grant funding, and that's gone away, and so you need to lower my pay. I think that, and we did, and he has, worked hard. I appreciated his straightforwardness. We put, again, especially today in the environment that a lot of us are concerned about, we highly value the service that's provided by our employees, and we understand that that the sacrifices that our taxpayers make to fund those services are valuable. We honor that, and so we appreciate what Don has done for us. I won't read the entire plaque. I know that Don Bryant would blush if we read this off, but he has worked with us diligently and honorably for the past 23 years. So in his absence, I would ask you to give him a round of applause, and then Roger will send it.
I am not Don Bryant, but Don had asked me to accept this on his behalf, and I'd asked him, I go, what would you like to say to the board members and the chairman in your absence? And he just said to pass along that he appreciates all the work that you supported him in, and especially the chairman laws and over the years, and that he's looking forward to enjoying retirement. So I will pass this on to him, and we'll congratulate him on his retirement. Thank you.
And then I'm going to, as far as the Chairman Short program, I'm going to defer that time to another day because we have a packed schedule. Next on the agenda, we have speakers on agenda items. And, every month I go through just a short note here. As a matter of protocol, individuals who have registered to speak on agenda items prior to 8:30 today are allowed 3 minutes to address the board. Total public comment time for items listed on the agenda are limited to 30 minutes. Speakers have always refrained from statements or remarks or conduct that's otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the county board or might cause a disturbance. We've never had any of that, and we're just grateful that people will share their thoughts with us. So first on the list is Matthew Lane. Matthew, if you'd come forward. Thank you very much for being here today. He's from AFSCME Local 3966, and he's speaking on the health insurance carrier for Kane County employees. Now, is the 3 minutes, Matt, is that sufficient?
That should be, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then could you also share with us, if you spell your name and then your address, and if you can share just a little bit about your background so that we know you as a person and professional.
Sure. My name is Matthew Lang. I do not live in Kane County. I'm the staff representative for AFSCME Local 3966, but I reside at 3328 Harrison Street in Evanston, Illinois. As I said, I represent the employees of AFSCME 3966. 175 of our members work in various departments in Kane County, including the Health Department, Court Services, the Circuit Clerk's Office, the County Clerk's Office, as well as the Office of Workforce Development. I am joined here by a delegation of Kane County employees and AFSCME members. Today we are considering a proposal that will directly and perhaps dramatically affect the lives of our Kane County members. AFSCME Local 3966 stands in opposition to resolution number 18-164 that would change the health insurance carrier away from Blue Cross Blue Shield to Aetna. We've been told not to worry because no benefits will change, only the carrier responsible for paying the benefits. And if we were certain that was true, we would not be worried or even here today. But the devil in these types of changes is always in the details. And because this deal has been negotiated behind closed doors, we are not privy to the details. What is worse, we are in the midst of contract negotiations with our 5 open contracts, and Kane County has not made any proposals regarding health insurance benefits to date. Any changes to our coverage or our cost must be subject to those negotiations, as health insurance is a mandatory subject of bargaining by law. So let's be clear. If all you are changing is the name of the carrier on our insurance card and absolutely nothing else, okay, fine. Save the money. We are for that. But if anything is changing regarding our coverage, our doctors, networks, costs, then rest assured we insist that those changes be the subject of our ongoing collective bargaining, and we are prepared to file unfair labor practice charges against the county and take any other legal measures necessary to protect our members, our contracts, and our rights. We welcome proposals to be brought to the bargaining table, and we welcome a transparent, responsible process that holds all parties accountable. Let me quote something we've all heard not too long ago. If you like your plan, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep that too. All you'll see is that the cost will fall. Well, we all know how that turned out, don't we? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Kane County Board members, let's not get fooled again here. Let's demand a responsible, transparent process where we all can read the fine print for ourselves. Thank you for the time and solidarity to the Teamsters. Thank you. We have a petition we'd like to submit. Who can we take our petition to? Bring a petition here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lang. Next on the list of speakers is Jeremy Edelson. Jeremy Edelson is from the Lanier Mushin, Carl Tannenberg's colleague. And then, Jeremy, is that 3 minutes sufficient?
Yes, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. And then if you would introduce yourself, I believe that you're going to be speaking to the same subject. And Blair, you've put up the slide, and we'll distribute what's on the slide around the table. It down, Blair, and then we'll go ahead and get started with Jeremy. Okay, if you'd introduce yourself and address, and then.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Jeremy Edelson. I'm an attorney at the law firm Lanier Mushin. My address is 515 North State Street in Chicago. I did want to point out a couple things that Mr. Lang had mentioned. We, as a county, feel that we have already bargained for the right to change carriers. And what you'll see on the slide is a direct quote from some collective bargaining agreements with AFSCME. It says, within the labor contracts for the Office of Community Reinvestment, that's on page 12, the county clerk, page 37, and then in a separate employee of the chief judge on page 33, you'll see that the express language gives the county the right to change carriers as follows. The county reserves the right to self-insure, change carriers, and engage in cost-contingent measures during the term of this agreement, so long as the benefits and coverages sought are substantially similar to those being currently offered. So the county's right to change carriers is expressly set forth in those collective bargaining agreements. And, you know, there's a term in labor law called maintaining the status quo. And that's once the collective bargaining or the labor contract is expired, the parties continue to abide by those terms and conditions even though the labor contract is expired. So, you know, for example, vacation pay. You know, even though the contract is expired, the county still provides vacation pay and paid holidays. And the right to change carriers will not go away with the expiration of collective bargaining agreements, and the county still maintains that right to change carriers along these lines. So this is a maintenance of that status quo. and the expired labor contracts. There is a recent case that has addressed an employer's right to change carriers, and the Illinois Labor Relations Board ruled as recently as last summer that the employer did have that right to change insurance carriers. So with that, I thank you for your time today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Edelson. Okay, next on the agenda are our zoning petitions. I'd like to ask Development Committee Chairman Kurt Kozar to rise to discuss and make a motion to approve each of the zoning petitions on today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Our first petition, 4444, is located in St. Charles Township. The petitioner is proposing a rezoning from an F district farming to an R9 district multifamily with a variance request for required parking on the property. This would bring it into conformity with the 2040 plan. There were no objectors. The zoning board voted to approve. The development committee also voted to recommend. I'll make the motion to approve at this time.
So moved by Mr. Kozar, second by Mr. Leonard. Any thoughts or comments? If not, clerk call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Barrero? Davis? Ford? Frost? I'm sorry. Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite? Kenyon? Kazarek? Leonard? Lewis? Martin? Molina? Sanchez? Shefflo? Silva? Smith? Sterrett? Thomas? Wegman? Winnicki? Passes.
The motion passes. Next, as far as resolutions and ordinances, this is the consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Mr. Smith?
18-150.
Okay, number 18150. Ms. Thomas?
18-141.
Okay, thank you. Any others? If not, may I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda with the exceptions of number 18141 and 18150. So moved by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Fraz. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Barrero? Davis? Ford? Fraz? Gillum? Hernandez? Hoshite? Kenyon? Kazarek? Leonard? Lewis? Martin? Molina? Sanchez? Shefflo? Silva? Smith? Sterrett? Thomas? Wegman? Winnicki? Passes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next would be, I'd like to ask for a motion to discuss and potentially approve number 18141. Ms. Thomas makes the motion, seconded by Mr. Smith. Ms. Thomas, would you rise and discuss the resolution?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me say that my comments are in no way to diminish or minimize the work and time that staff and others have put into this project. This resolution is to renew a contract to manage invasive plants at the Judicial Center. And I recognize that this is the last phase of this project. But when I saw this, I thought, how ironic. Here we are in the middle of a labor dispute with staff inside the buildings. And we're focused on plants outside, weeds outside. It's my understanding that this is not grant dollars. And if there is any way that we can redirect these funds to in some way start to move toward obligations for the people inside the buildings, that is what I ask. And so I will be voting no, and I urge my colleagues to join me in voting no for 18-141.
Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. I pulled Section
Mr. Thomas, excuse me.
18150.
Mr. Smith, would you?
Point of order, I pulled section 18150 off the agenda, which is to honor National Police Week. Ms. Thomas did not speak of that item on the agenda.
Mr. Smith, we are going to come to that in the next item on the agenda. So,
thank you.
So what we'll do is Ms. Thomas has moved, but has said that she will vote no on number 141, and then thank you for your second to discuss it, and that's on 141. Are there any other comments or thoughts, questions on 141? If not, clerk, call the roll. Now I'm going to come to you.
Allen? Aye. Auger? Yes. Barrero? No. Davis?
Yes.
Ford? Yes. Fries? Yes. Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? No. Hochheit?
Yes.
Kenyon?
Yes.
Kazarek?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Lewis?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Molina? No. Sanchez?
No.
Shefflo?
Yes.
Silva? No. Smith?
Yes.
Starrett? No. Thomas? No. Wegman? No. And Winicki? Yes. Passes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next on the agenda, may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve number 18150. That's Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, you can see how anxious I was to talk about this. As the only police officer on the board, I thought it was my obligation and duty to pull this off the agenda. This item deals with the next week as being National Police Week. And I feel this is very important. And I will also, because of this, I would like to introduce our new Chief Deputy Sheriff, Mr. Pat Gangler. Pat, would you come forward and say a few words about how important National Police Week is?
Okay, thank you. And while Pat is coming up, I'd also like a second, and second is Ms. Starrett. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me a moment to talk. I do believe that we missed part of this. This week is National Corrections Officers Week. A couple weeks ago was National Telecommunicator Week. It's great that we're recognizing the police, but without one of the three wheels, the system doesn't work. So while we're the public eye, people get to see the police officers. Without our partners in those areas and recognizing their efforts, we don't function. Really like to just say that the police officers make a lot of sacrifices, everybody does, and to hear somebody recognize us with all the bad publicity out there and all the negative toward law enforcement and public safety as a whole, we really do appreciate the board taking this time to recognize us and recognize all our partners that put on the badge, whatever that badge may be, to serve the citizens of this county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other thoughts or comments? If not, clerk, call the roll.
Allen? Auger? Yes. Barrero? Yes. Davis? Yes. Ford? Yes. Fries? Yes. Gillum? Yes. Hernandez? Yes. Hochheit? Yes. Kenyon? Yes. Kazarek? Yes. Leonard? Yes. Lewis? Yes. Martin? Yes. Molina? Yes. Sanchez? Yes. Shefflo? Yes. Silva? Yes. Smith? Yes. Starrett? Yes. Thomas? Yes. Wegman? Yes. Winicki? Yes. Passes.
Okay, the motion passes. And just a general note, as we go through these deliberations, I'll ask our audience not to participate at this time, but I mean, there are different ways of either calling my office or sending notes in, but during this deliberation, we would like to have board members only participating in the discussion, and we'll go to the next item. So may I have a motion and a second to discuss and potentially approve Resolution 18, number 164, approving Kane County's group health benefit provider. So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Ms. Allen. Mr. Leonard, I'll turn the program over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What I'd like to do is go through a short presentation on health insurance. We did this at Human Services about 3 weeks ago. We then did it at the Finance Committee meeting, and we've also done it at the Executive Committee meeting. And this will be our 4th presentation. So please, bear with me on this. I'm sorry that many of you have heard it many times, but I just want to go over it for anyone who hasn't been made aware of it or hasn't been presented this presentation. At this point, I just want to say that we as a county, we as a committee, the exploratory committee that looked at this, have nothing but good to say about Blue Cross and Blue Shield. There's nothing negative that we feel there's a need to change because of what they're doing or have done. We're looking at this for a number of different reasons. And I'd like to take a look, first of all, at our objectives. What we did in looking at the health insurance plans, we got an initial indication that there would be a double-digit increase. And in the next slide or two, I'll go over that in detail. So we decided we wanted to take a look at getting alternative quotes, and we wanted to make sure that there were no benefit reductions, no network provider disruptions. If possible, we wanted to enhance benefits and service whenever possible, and we wanted to make sure that not only the employee but the employer cost remained flat. If we go to the next slide, Blair. This is a timeline of our process, and as you can see, back in August, we hired an auditing firm to take a look at our health, dental, vision, and life. And at that time, when it was evaluated, it was brought to the Human Services Committee that because of the potential of a 9.9% increase in our rates, that we should look at getting alternative quotes. This was presented to us by Blue Cross and Blue Shield on November 1st of 2017. And at that time, we asked, is this a definite or a hard number that we can use? They said, no, it's still tentative, but we will have a firm number for you shortly. So at that point, we waited 2 more months, requested a number of times that Blue Cross and Blue Shield give us a firm number. And on January 1, they did give us a number of 15.25% as an increase. But once again, they said, this is tentative. We can't guarantee it. We asked them again to please give us some information on the firm number that we can use for our budget process. And in the interim, at that point, we decided to send out an RFP. We literally sent it out to 18 or 19 different companies, the large health insurance carriers, Cigna, Humana, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, Aetna, all responded with quotes. We set up an exploratory committee, and what we wanted to do is not make this a board decision, but more of a county decision on which way we wanted to go. And so we set up an exploratory committee which included Mark Van Kerkhoff, Roger Fonstock, Susan Brown, Chris Lawson, myself, Sylvia Wetzel, and Barb Jeffers. Once we took a look at all the proposals, we decided to have the 4 best proposals, in our opinion, come in for an interview. We went through that interview process, took a look at the different offers that they were making, and then waited on Blue Cross and Blue Shield until we got a final firm number. And on March 9th, they did give us a confirmed rate of 12.3% increase. At that point, we decided that we had to have a broker resolution signed, because under our agreement through IPVC, we had to give them a 90-day notice before we could terminate the coverage. That's not saying that we were going to, but we had to give notice that we would do it. So we did that before April 1st, and then on roughly March 13th, that broker resolution was passed by Kane County Board. It was then sent out with the 90-day notification on March 16th. On April 13th, we then brought the resolution to consider making a change from Blue Cross and Blue Shield to Aetna, and that was approved unanimously by the Human Services Committee. The result of the audit on the right side of this slide I wanted to show you has shown that we have already saved in dental costs $205,000 over the next 2 years, which equates to about $102,500 a year. And on the vision over 4 years, we saved $86,000, which equates to about another $21,500. One point I'd like to make, the auditing firm that we hired is charging us $96,000 a year. Just in the dental and vision area, we have already saved more money than we will be spending for their services for the next 4 years. The other thing that we noticed was our administrative fee or broker commission through Blue Cross and Blue Shield was much higher than we had anticipated or been told. When we first went with this plan, we were told it would be between $90,000 and $120,000. When the audit firm came through and completed their study, they said you're paying $230,000 in broker commission fees, and we thought that was excessive. So taking the $96,000 off of the broker fees, we also have an additional savings of $140,000 in administrative fees. Could you go to the next one? The next slide was already presented by Jeremy, and it relates to our concern that we wanted to make sure if we are proposing a change, number one, that we had the right to and that we weren't violating any collective bargaining agreements. And as you can see on this slide, the county reserves the right to self-insure, change carriers, and engage in cost containment measures during the term of this agreement, so long as the benefits and coverages sought are substantially similar to those being offered, currently being offered. And in fact, we are following that precisely. And I wouldn't even say that there's close to a substantial change in the coverage. Can we go to the next one? Under the recommendation that we have, we wanted to take a look again at 4 or 5 different criteria that we thought were very important. We wanted to make sure there would be no benefit reduction, so coverages would be identical to what they are with our current plan. And in this case, there is no benefit reduction in the plan that we're proposing through Aetna. We wanted minimal to no network disruption. And in the HMO network, we have a 99% match. We had about a 97% match on the PPO, but then thanks to the state's attorney and getting some additional information for us, they did a restudy of that and found out that we have a 98.7% match on monies paid under the PPO network. So it's very close to identical. It isn't identical. There are some doctors, some chiropractors, some oral surgeons, and some behavioral therapists that may or may not be on the plan that we're not sure of. But we do know that 98.7 of the dollars paid were in network. The other point that I'd like to make, could you go to the next slide, please? The other point that I'd like to make with respect to the coverages, this plan is the Aetna plan and the IPBC plan. In other words, we wanted to make sure, and we had to, by law, make sure that we duplicated coverages, which we did. There have been a number of questions about, well, gee, we're on Blue Cross right now, and I've already used most of my deductible. Do I have to start over? And no, you don't. Any out-of-pocket expense that you've had during the first 6 months of 2018 will be honored by Aetna just as it would through Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So if you have $200 remaining on your deductible or your out-of-pocket expenses for the year, that's what you'll have for the remaining 6 months through Aetna for the fiscal year January 1 through 12/31. Could we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, these 2 slides show not only the non-union but the union plans. And once again, they are identical to what we currently have. Go to the next slide. With respect to the Aetna provider match, we took a look at all the key hospitals in the area. Of course, they're all in network, and the pharmacies. And like I said, with respect to the doctors, in the HMO, we have a 99% match. And now in the PPO, in dollars paid out, we have a 98.5 or 98.7% match. So we're very, very close. Having been in insurance for over 30 years now, I realize that networks change every year, whether you stay with the carrier or you go to another carrier. And most carriers have anywhere from a 1% to 2% change in the network each and every year. So being within that range of 98.5% to 99% puts us right in the area that we want to be. And as you can see, everything is a match at this point with respect to that. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I take full responsibility for this, it was my intention to get information out to all the board members about the network so that they could look at that. I miscommunicated that. It didn't get out, and the board members did not receive the information to look up in the network until this morning. I had been using it for the last few days, and I have found that it looks like, you know, we're probably at a 98, 99% match. But I request all of you to take a look at it, use that site, and if you do have any problems, call our Human Services Department and they will walk you through it. They also are going to have a computer dedicated for lookups if you want to go up to the office and take a look at the provider match. But it should be, you know, not 100%, but virtually identical, about 99%. Next slide, please. Before I get to the benefit enhancement, the one thing that I did want to mention to everybody is, you know, change is always difficult, and it's something that is very tough for many people to come to grips with. But I do want to make the point that in this scenario, we have the potential of saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. In fact, up to $2 million in potential savings if we make this change. And when I look at our financial situation in the county, I know that we want to get the in-home monitoring program back in place. Savings in this area could help pay for part of that. I know the Sheriff's Department needs new cars, and we could use part of the money for that. And of course, the largest concern that I think we as all board members have is taking care of our employees with their paycheck. And we need to take care of getting raises to these people. And with the savings, potential savings that we have through this change, I think that can go very far in getting fair and equitable raises for everybody in the county, both union and non-union. The last slide, I just wanted to mention some of the benefit enhancements. And the first one is the teledoc service at no additional cost. Blue Cross said they could add this service on, but it would be about $69,000 a year. What it is it's a strictly voluntary option that anybody on the health plan has, that if they have some type of chronic or regular condition that they need to get a prescription for, a treatment for, they can actually call 24/7 over the phone, get a doctor, explain the situation, the doctor can make a diagnosis, and then decide what remedy of treatment needs to be done. What we have learned is with this program, if half of the people use that in non-emergency situations with chronic conditions, the county could save anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 because the teledoc service is $44. If you go to urgent care, it's about $150. And of course, if you go to the emergency room, it's about $1,500. So there's a substantial savings for us there. But once again, it's very important that everyone realize this is a voluntary option. No one has to use it. If you still want to go to the urgent care or the emergency room, that is your choice, but this is an option that we offer. The other benefit that we have, or enhancement we have in the plan, is $75,000 in wellness credits. This is a way of us trying to help people that may have some pre-existing health conditions to get the treatment they need, to get it diagnosed and treated. And by doing that, we feel we'll have a savings there. We also found out that one of the biggest things that creates health problems is stress. And the biggest stress indicator is financial wellness. Under this program through Aetna, we also have $50,000 going to a financial wellness program that we can use for our employees if they so desire. And then lastly, and I think very important to the Human Services Department, we are getting, at no cost to us, it's about a $75,000 benefit, a software program, so that every application, every communication with Aetna will be done electronically, not paper and pencil anymore, and we feel it will be much more efficient and much better for documentation. So that is what we have to offer. I'd like to open the floor to any board members that may have any questions. Yes, Ms. Allen?
as our labor spokesman said earlier today, the devil is always in the details. We know that most of us are going to go see our doctor once or twice a year, and knock wood, we all get to enjoy good health, and the insurance companies, I think, of course, hope for that, because that's how they can give us a reasonably priced premium. But the folks who run into the heavy-duty medical problems are the ones that we are all most concerned about. So I wanted to cover a couple of items just on the record for my own sanity. Do we have our representative here? Thanks, Mr. Baker. Once again, you are on our spot. We're watching you. Let me ask this question. I know that you have said publicly that people who are in care will be able to continue their treatment, and it will be through the year that we are planning on signing up with you, which would be July 1st of this year through June 30th of 2019. And during that period of time, the folks who are in treatment will get to continue their treatment just as if they were still on Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I just wanted to verify with you that that includes doctors, it includes treatment facilities, it includes MRIs and PET scans, whatever their treatment was in place, that is what Aetna is prepared to honor.
Correct. So there's a transition of care policy. So if someone they list out the coverages, and again, this is for the 3% or 1% that aren't in network. There's a transition of care policy. If you're going through chemotherapy and your oncologist is not in network, they fill out the form, they will be, through the treatment of the chemo, that will be covered as in network for that member. So if it's 30 days and if treatment's going on right now and the chemo is scheduled to be complete July 31st, through July 31st, that will be processed as in network. If it's scheduled through 90 days, it will be covered. If it's past 90 days, it usually doesn't need to be. The policy is 90 days. That can be extended if the treatment was going to go longer.
It can be extended, I'm sorry, for how long?
It can be extended through the treatment. So if you're with a network provider, how long is that treatment plan scheduled? So if it's scheduled for 9 months, the transition of care will go through 9 months. And in that time, Aetna would work with that provider to try to get them in network.
Okay, and if that provider is used to being paid more under Blue Cross Blue Shield than they would normally be paid with Aetna, is Aetna prepared to also honor those reimbursements for those vendors?
They work out an arrangement with the providers, yes, on the transition of care policy. So each transition of care policy is different. I would not say that they're going to match Blue Cross, because there's times the provider agrees to lower, there's times that they have to match. So to say that they always match, I can't say that, but they process it as in network and they negotiate with the provider for an agreeable terms on the payment.
Okay, but we don't expect a vendor to say, well, I'm going to stop treating that patient.
It does not impact the member. They get approved for transition of care, and the member's care will be processed as in network. It's behind the scenes with Aetna and the provider. They will not be impacted on their out-of-pocket.
Okay, thank you for the devil in the details.
You're welcome.
Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If this new policy goes into effect, at what date will the new program begin?
The new program will begin July 1st, and it runs for 12 months. Yes.
Thank you. So I want to thank you again, Bill, for sharing the timeline at the budget meeting on the 27th. And when I left that meeting, I was really prepared to vote for this change. I certainly don't want a 12.3% increase in premiums, but as I looked more closely at that timeline, one thing stood out to me, and that was the time frame for the RFPs. The chart says that the RFP for a new broker was January 26th, which was a Friday. And then the committee that had been assembled to consider RFPs received was on February 1st. So that's like 4 days to receive RFPs, and that just seemed like a very short window. And I know we're on an aggressive timeline, but that time frame just seemed just very short. And the more pressing concern I have is about the current term of our contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I have asked the auditor's office, which is supposed to have contracts on file. I've asked HR, and other colleagues on the board have also asked for the 2018 contract so that we can see what's the term? Is it January 1 to December 31st, like the 2017 contract says, January 1st to December 31st? We know when the contract with Aetna is supposed to start. We know the deadline for giving notice to IPBC. But no one, even the head of HR at this point in time, today, can tell us what's the term of the current Blue Cross Blue Shield contract. And that's not sitting well with me. And so I just want to make sure that other members of the county board are aware that we do not have that piece of basic information on which to consider before taking this vote.
Mike, do you want to answer?
My understanding of reviewing your trust documents with the IPBC is you do not have a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. You have a contract with IPBC, and that starts on July 1st. They utilize Blue Cross Blue Shield to administer your benefit plans. So IPBC could technically change providers, and then that would be the provider of the new IPBC trust. So when we did our audit, all data came from IPBC. So we sent them requests, they had to go to Blue Cross, they sent it to, Blue Cross sent it to IPBC. So there's a contract with IPBC and Blue Cross, but that's between the trust and Blue Cross. That's my understanding. I didn't work for IPBC. That was how we reviewed the trust document.
Yes.
So I'm looking at Resolution 16-295, which specifically mentions a contract with Blue Cross and Blue Shield that began January 1st, 2017 through December 31, 2017. So you're saying that we had a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield for 2017, but not a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield for 2018?
You know, Ms. Thomas, if I could, I'll try to explain this, and I hope I do it in a reasonably clear way. For all benefits paid under any health insurance plan, they have a fiscal year for deductibles, co-payments, co-insurance, out-of-pocket expenses. That always runs from January 1 to 12/31. However, our contract for the health insurance runs from July 1 to July 1. So they overlap each other. But one of the big concerns that was mentioned to me by a number of people was the fact that they're worried about their deductibles this year not being honored through Aetna or their out-of-pocket expenses. All of those will be honored as if we're still with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. There won't be any change in that at all. So the health insurance plan actually runs July 1 to July 1 for the county, but the out-of-pocket expenses and coverages run from January 1 to 12/31. Anything else?
I guess my only remaining question is, why doesn't anyone have the contract? The auditor, who's supposed to have it on file, HR, who really should know this contract in and out like the back of their hand. Why haven't we seen it?
You know, I don't know, and I do know we can get our hands on that if you would like to see it. I just know the policy terms for those, but I don't have a good answer for you on that.
I know that HR is already working on that per our request, and so I thank them for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Farrar.
Thank you, Commissioner Leonard. I would like to mention that I have asked for that contract also,
And the point of asking for it before a vote is so that we can read it. And if we don't have it, then we don't really have the education to make our vote proper. Do you understand? So if we don't know what the exact terms of the contract, then I feel we really shouldn't be voting on something that we don't even have all the information on. The other thing is, when you say that we're saving $2 million, theoretically...
That's potential.
Exactly. Those are the words that you need to listen to. Potential savings. Because Aetna's going to cost us 5%, correct? Same as Blue Cross Blue Shield? What?
5%, I'm not familiar with
Well, their rates went up 12, Mike, Mr. Baker. You said Blue Cross Blue Shield was going to go up 12.7% or something.
12.3.
Right, for this year, or going forward.
Starting July 1.
Starting July 1. And we paid 5% previously. So that would be a 12.7% increase, correct?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not following your 5%. Are you talking about
Go back to, okay. Preliminary rate increase, 15.2%.
That was, that wasn't a firm number. It was an indication they were giving us, and we kept asking for a firm number. And we didn't get that till March 9th, and that was 12.3%.
Okay, so 12.3% for their confirmed rate, but the rate previous years have been 5%, correct?
On the average, yeah, I'd say that's pretty close. Yeah.
Okay, and Aetna is going to be 5% also?
Let me walk through how the county currently sets employee contributions in the fall, and that's an estimate by IPBC. They're guessing what the renewal will be for the county the following July.
Okay, but what's Aetna? What was Aetna's promise?
The forecast under the Aetna was, I think we did a preliminary forecast for this coming year at about 2%, 2.5% for the HMO, and around 5 to 7% on the PPO, but that's preliminary.
Preliminary. We don't even have that. You don't even have that.
And we won't have that, Teresa, until well into the year because, a lot of it's dictated on claim experience. So whether we're with Blue Cross or Aetna, no one's going to be able to predict the increase for the following year until they have some claim experience on hand for the current year.
So why are we changing?
Well, because the rates through Blue Cross and Blue Shield this July 1, they're going to increase the rates 12.3%. Aetna is not increasing the rates at all for the year July 1 through July 1, 18 to 19.
Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. So theoretically, we're going to save $2 million, but that's kind of a wash because it would cost us $2 million, as you say, if we stayed with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Since we're not staying with Blue Cross Blue Shield, we're not theoretically saving anything other than their potential increase that Blue Cross Blue Shield confirmed rate of 12.3.
Yeah, that's not a potential increase. That's a real increase that they have committed to.
Okay. They've committed to it, but we will not really save anything if we're changing, because that's a wash. That's over with. Do you understand? If we're changing insurance companies and we're supposed to be getting the same rate, that's what you just said to me, through 1 year, then we are theoretically not spending $2 million or saving $2 million. There is no $2 million.
Well, the $2 million increase, the 12.3% increase would start July 1st of 2018 and run through the following year to July 1 of 2019. That is a confirmed rate increase by Blue Cross and Blue Shield that goes into effect July 1 of this year.
I get that, but we're not, you don't want to go, the question on the table here is to, if we go with Aetna, we're going to save $2 million, and actually we're not, because we haven't voted on anything. So we're not saving anything.
Well, yes, until we vote, if we decide to make a change, we're not going to realize any savings at all. That's correct.
Okay. And then I was going through my records, and I found on Resolution 1742, it just mentions, it does mention Blue Cross Blue Shield and Guardian. But, you know, I've gone, and many of my county, my fellow county board members have gone through previous years to try and find this contract and to see where it states the Blue Cross Blue Shield contract through 2018, and none of us can find it. So I'm confused with that fact. Why isn't that like an accessible record that we could just pull up and show everybody? And even Mike, you mentioned you saw it. Where did you see it?
I don't know how the past resolutions were written. IBBC is the organization that gives the county the rate increase, not Blue Cross Blue Shield. That is solely, if you ask Blue Cross Blue Shield directly, you have a contract with the trust. You have a summary plan description, how your benefits, the summary plan description, your deductibles, copay, that contract is with Blue Cross through IBBC. But as far as rates, what you're billed, that is billed from the trust. Your money goes to IBBC. They put that in an account, and they decide what your future rates will be. So that's you have a renewal contract for finances with the trust, IBBC.
And did you see that?
We have the trust agreement, and then it talks about how they do renewals. So that's where the trust agreement states how you enter the trust, how you leave the trust, but they don't give in that agreement. That just talks about how the functioning of the trust works.
It doesn't say the date, expiration date.
The trust in there, the trust always renews on July 1st through June 30th. And then if you want to leave the trust, you have to notify the trust by April 1st if you want to leave for the following July.
Why did we have, why have we passed in 2016, we passed a contract with Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's Resolution 16295 through 2017, but then we don't have anything going forward.
I wasn't here.
No answer.
No, you know, Teresa, what I'd like to try to explain is a little bit complicated. Through the trust IPBC, their year is July 1 through June 30th. Through whatever health insurance carrier we use, whether it's Blue Cross or Aetna, the coverages and the exposures and the out-of-pocket expenses all run January 1 to 12/31. One point I'd like to make here is if we stay with IPBC, we can't change the date of the coverage from July 1 to our fiscal year 12/1, which would make things a whole lot easier for everybody. What we can do is a year from now, if we're with that net or we go somewhere else or whatever, we can change our plan year from, you know, 7/1/18 to 7/1/19 to 12/1/19 to 12/1/20. So outside of the trust, we have the ability to change our plan year, but in the trust, the IPBC trust, they are firm about it being a July 1 date, even though the coverages run January 1 to 12/31. So we could coordinate those two, and I think that would solve a lot of confusion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Why is it that we go through IPBC instead of directly with Blue Cross? That might help enlighten the conversation.
You know, it's a great question. And the reason why we go through IPBC is a few years ago, we decided to get into this assigned risk pool, which is IPBC. And their benefit to us was we would receive a dividend every year. So when we went out and got quotes to make sure we looked at everything, we not only got a quote and a final rate from IPBC for Blue Cross and Blue Shield, but we also got an individual quote from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And they were higher than IPBC if we went directly to Blue Cross. So it's a great question, but it was even more expensive. Yes. Sorry.
Thanks, Bill. I had a question. It was more of a legal or validity question. On 3/16, the 90-day notification was given to the IPBC. Who authorized that? The board didn't authorize that.
The Human Services Department approved it, went to executive, and then went to the county board, which they approved also.
Well, if you look at the resolution that was approved on March 13th, which is 18-69, it authorizes the new brokerage, but it didn't authorize the notification officially.
You know, I haven't read that resolution closely, so I'm sorry, I can't comment on that, but... Anything else? Yes, Barb.
Thank you, Bill, for all your hard work, and I want to thank all our employees for being here. Kane County has the finest employees. There's no question, and we recognize that as a county board. I would like to ask you, all our employees are here from our probation and our counseling department. What can you tell them to make them feel safe and secure? Right now they feel safe and secure with the Blue Cross Blue Shield plan. And then my second question is, we can only sign a contract for 1 year. What if Aetna comes back at the end of that year and proposes another 12.3% increase? Then where do we go from there?
Well, you know, Barbara, that's a really good question. The rate increase is based about 80% on our claim experience. So we don't know how the claims are going to be for this next year. But, you know, Aetna did not propose a 12.3% rate increase. It was Blue Cross. And what we will do next year is we'll see where Aetna comes in, but we'll have the claim information and we can get an indication much sooner. So that'll kind of speed up the time.
So to answer your question, so on the rate increase, this is further what Bill said. So under the trust, you have claims that's driving the majority of increases. So the trust looks at your employees' claims, that drives your increase. The trust has fixed costs of $5 million that you have to pay regardless if you see a doctor. Aetna's fixed costs are $2.2 million, so you're moving guaranteed expense into potential claims expense. As far as plan design, your plan is designed and is a self-funded plan under the trust and under Aetna with protections for your worst case scenario cost. So the county's plan is designed so what your benefits are, your deductibles, your co-pays, your out-of-pocket, every part of your plan, Aetna matches. This is not a Aetna fully insured filed plan that you have to take these benefits. So if you make the change, Aetna goes line by line each of your benefits and matches them. And then as your deductibles reset on January 1st, every member who's satisfied their deductible year to date under Blue Cross Blue Shield will receive credit. Now, what happens is if someone's going to the doctor today, Blue Cross won't pay that probably until the end of June, early July. So there'll be a two-step process on crediting deductible, actually three. One is if you make the change, there'll be an initial report loaded, so anyone who's already met their deductible or a portion, that will be loaded into Aetna's system before July 1st. So if I've already met my deductible, I don't have to worry about anything. If I'm in the in-between stage and Blue Cross is still paying that claim, there'll be a second report that's sent and uploaded to credit your members' deductibles. If I get caught in that middle, the Aetna team and our team can take an employee's EOB and get that credited immediately within 24 hours so they don't have to pay any out-of-pocket more than they should. So they will have the same deductible, same out-of-pocket, same maximum for 2018.
Thank you, Mike. Joe McMahon would like to make a comment. Joe?
Yeah, so Ms. Auger, you asked a question. You asked for you asked a legal question, and I want to answer that. Because we don't contract directly with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, notice that we're required to give is notice to our broker. And there was a resolution that moved through various committees in March, replacing our prior broker, which was Gallagher, with the gentleman that's here today and the company that he represents. So that resolution was passed by the full county board in March, which authorized notice to the broker, and so we're not required to give any further specific notice to Blue Cross Blue Shield of the intent to cancel. And the reason for that is what was described by Mr. Leonard earlier, is that we don't have a contract directly with Blue Cross. Our contract is with the pool, or the IPBC. So the notice, this is an issue that just came up this morning. We've been reviewing it during the meeting here this morning, and the answer is that no further notice is required other than what was provided to the broker of our intent to cancel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of comments and maybe even questions. One is, I'm kind of disappointed that we didn't hear back from Blue Cross Blue Shield after this process started to counter-react and make a proposal.
You know, Ron, it's a good point, and quite honestly, we contacted Blue Cross and Blue Shield many, many times, not 3 times, not 6 times, maybe a dozen or more times, asking for a price. Once they gave us their confirmed rate on March 9th, we went back 3 more times and asked them if they would reconsider lowering that rate. They said no.
And it seems that our employees, who are very important to us, still have some issues. I think if this passes today, that we should set up a system where that reports can be made back to us so we keep a track of this as it goes along. It should not die here.
It's a great point, Ron, and what we have done is set up in the Human Services Department through Sylvia a direct, dedicated computer and a person or persons in that department to answer any and all questions about the changes, providers, networks, or whatever. And then finally, if we don't get the proper answer there, Mike Baker has given us an 800 number that we can contact to find out something specific that we don't have an answer to. So we do have something set up, but you know, we can't put the cart in front of the horse.
No, I'm just saying if it does pass, to have it come back to Human Services.
Certainly. Anything else? Yes, Dr. Silva.
Thank you. So in your initial statement, Mr. Leonard, I did hear you talk about stress being a cause of ill health, and I completely agree. You also mentioned that there are some behavioral health specialists that won't be in network with Aetna that we could potentially lose now. I think that's a very important point. I think that if we don't address that, that's sending the wrong message in the face of the opioid epidemic. We did have the Surgeon General out here last week to talk to us about that. Also, we proclaim National Mental Health Week, so I think it's important that we talk about the importance of people being able to maintain their mental health professional, their behavioral health professional. I would like to see that they are able to stay with that practitioner if possible. At a previous meeting, it was suggested that we could take a poll, or we could ask the employees what they felt, because they might not want to pay the increase in 12% or that they're being asked to pay with Blue Cross. I think today we heard a very representative voice of our employees that have told us that they wish to stay with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I think this is the wrong time to do this. Morale is low. People have questions. They are scared. I'm scared for them. I'm scared for Kane County with everything that is going on right now. You saw me stand up earlier. That was because I want to recognize that there are people here who are also public servants. There are people here who keep us safe. As one of the nurses at the health department pulled me aside and said, "We do not want this change. We each have 30 years of experience. We will go, you will lose us, and you're one sneeze away from a tuberculosis outbreak. I don't like drama. I don't like to make people believe what I believe. I'm just passing the information on. I think it's the wrong time. Like I said before, financially it makes sense. I'm not proposing that by switching to Aetna, we're going to come down to tuberculosis. Let me be clear about that. What I am saying is that the people who take care of us, who watch these things, who monitor these things, want to stick with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. And I just want to acknowledge you, that I've heard you, and that I promised that I would convey that information to the rest of the board. The health department lost 50% of its staff a few years ago. They're already overworked. It's A+ service that they give. I don't know that I've seen any other department undergo so much in the last few years, except for what I'm seeing right now in probation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Silver. Appreciate your comments. Anything else? Ms. Sterr?
First of all, thank you very much, Bill, for leading the charge with everything with this. I know it's been a lot of time, obviously, with all the information that we've been given to go over it as well. I also wanted to thank Mr. Mike Baker as well, too, for all of his time and effort answering all the questions that we have. I also would like to thank Aetna and also Blue Cross Blue Shield for basically knowing what we're going through and being open to even dealing with us. So I think it's an important decision that we're making. I think the first thing also is that the fact that we're looking to save money, which I think is very important, and I am very proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that you all have looked to do that in this committee, that you've looked to save money and to make sure that with our brokers that we would actually be having a fairer rate than what we had been paying before. So I'm very appreciative to that as well. And I know that this has been a project that's been working on, we've been discussing it off and on for 4 years. So I appreciate that as well, even before you were here, Bill. But one of the things, a couple of things I'd like to mention. One is that if the claims stay the same this next year, even though Aetna has said that it wouldn't, change anything, we'll have an increase next year. And so you don't have a guarantee as to what it's going to be for the following year. So saying that because Aetna has promised to get our business to do it for 1 year, that doesn't mean that they won't go to 24% the following year. You don't know that because you have no guarantees, because we're doing a 1-year contract, which I know we do in insurance anyway. But I think that we need to actually look at the big picture of this as well to understand that whenever a company comes in business, you want to get their business. And I'm not saying that that's what Aetna is doing. I'm just saying that that is a normal, common practice. And so you do have to realize that they could come back next year with a 24% increase or larger, and maybe it's less than what Blue Cross Blue Shield is going to be. We don't know that. So there's no way to tell on that. The other thing is with regards to the teledoc, I've mentioned this before. I know that the malpractice insurance companies say that they are waiting for the malpractice lawsuits to happen on this. So I don't think that we should be saying, yay, let's all go for that, unless you want to bring on lawsuits. And the fact that Blue Cross Blue Shield says, look, you can add that, but that would be, what was it, another $69,000? Maybe that's to cover some of the malpractice lawsuits that they're already seeing, because I can tell you that I've already spoken to multiple malpractice insurance companies, and they have all said that they are already shoring up money because they are sure they're going to be seeing lots of malpractice lawsuits because of teledoc practice. Also, one other thing. Bill, and of great respect for you as well, and I know that you said that, for instance, certain things that you said, well, I wish I would have gotten, like, for instance, the list of doctors today. But just in the recent past, this is the third time. The first time you didn't give information before was with regard to dental and vision. You brought in the actual resolution the day of it. No one had any time to look at it before Human Services. You did the same thing for this as well, too, for the health insurance, the day of. No one had any advance warning or notice on it as well until the day of Human Services. And then now with the doctors as well. So saying that I'm sorry and I should do it the next time, I've heard it quite a few times, so I'm sorry. The last two things, then I'm done. I'm very proud to be a Kane County representative. I'm very proud to be a citizen of Kane County and have been my entire life. I'm very proud of the people that work here. The employees are incredible, and they put their lives on the line for us every single day. And I think that it's important that we make sure that we not only let our employees know that we want them here, that we respect them, that we honor them, and that we also want to pay them back as well, too, in a way, to make sure that they're compensated well. I know that's one of the things that they're working on right now in collective bargaining. I know that. But taking something away that you have such a large grouping that is saying no to, I think you're not giving confidence to the people and saying that maybe they know what it is that they're looking for. Maybe they know something that they want. I know Dr. Silva had mentioned, at the time when confidence is not really at the highest right now. We want that. The people that are out there that are serving us every single day and are protecting us and are doing their jobs at the health department, at all the different departments, we need to make sure that we are giving that as well. The last thing I'd like to say is that with regards to transparency, our county board has been very much about transparency. And we talked about the fact that no one's been able to find, I guess, a contract for Blue Cross Blue Shield. However, we also don't have a contract for Aetna. And my issue is that I don't go into signing things unless I've actually read the contract first. So I can't sign this. I can't vote for this. I can't say yes because I haven't seen it. And I'm not saying that I'm the end-all on this. I think that everyone should have that. I think everyone should be able to go through that, and saying that, well, you'll get it later doesn't bode well, because we've seen that in the national scene, and where they've said, well, don't worry about it, just sign it now, and then you can deal with it later. And I'm sorry, but that hasn't gone too well. Obviously, we know that. I know that you're not trying to, and I understand that. And so I'm just pointing out some facts that a lot of people have mentioned, and I really do not want to lose people here at Kane County. And I have had an outpouring of people who have said, and I'm talking hundreds now, that have said that they will leave Kane County if we switch. So thank you very much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And I can go over 3 minutes if I want to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jarrett. I appreciate your comments, and I understand that everyone will not be for this. You have to vote your conscience. I totally respect that. I would like to point out, though, with respect to the dental and the vision, that we did go through committee. We went through Human Services, Finance, Executive, and County Board for approval, and we've done the same thing here on the health insurance. With respect to getting the information out to look up the network providers, that's my fault, so I apologize for that. But that was one area where we didn't follow really an adequate procedure. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Molina.
Thank you, Mr. Leonard. My questions pertain to our negotiations and personnel matters, so I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss impending litigation.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Dr. Silva seconds the motion. We have a scheduled executive session that comes later. I think that we need to vote on this, of whether we're going to decide here or whether we're going to go into executive session, then come back and discuss it more. So I'd like to propose that we have a vote on whether we go into executive session to talk about matters where...
This is directly affecting this vote, and I'm asking for the state's attorney's opinion. So I think it would behoove us to go into a quick executive session now, prior to us making this vote.
So can you give me some guidance on? I would have a motion and second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor now to go into closed session on this issue. You should call a vote on the current motion.
The clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger? Yes. Barrero?
Yes.
Davis?
Yes.
Ford? Yes. Fries. Gillum. Yes. Hernandez. Yes. Hochheit.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Yes. Sanchez. Yes. Silva. Yes. Smith.
Yes.
Starrett.
Yes.
Thomas. Yes. Wegman. Yes. Winnicki.
Shefflo. Yes. Okay, motion passes. Shefflo is a
Sheffler, I'm
yes.
sorry. Thank you.
So we'll go into executive session. Okay, we're back in open session. I'd entertain a motion to table Resolution 18-164. So moved by Mr. Lewis, seconded by Mr. Hochheit. Clerk, call the roll.
Allen. Auger. Yes. Barrero. Yes. Davist.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Fries. Gillum. Yes. Hernandez.
Yes.
Hochheit.
Yes.
Kenyon.
Yes.
Kazarek.
Yes.
Leonard.
Yes.
Lewis.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Molina. Sanchez.
Yes.
Shefflo.
No.
Silva.
No.
Smith.
Yes.
Starrett.
No.
Thomas.
No.
Wegman.
No.
Winnicki.
Yes.
6 passes.
Okay, motion to table passes. Now may I have a motion and a second to go into executive session to discuss settlement of claims and pending litigation. So moved by Mr. Leonard, second by Mr. Kazar. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Going into executive session. I'd like to call the meeting back to order in open session. May I have a motion and a second for settlement of pro se claim Williams versus Kane County Sheriff in the amount of $5950.20. So moved by Ms. Allen, second by Mr. Shefflo. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Oh, excuse me, and the record will show that Mr. Ford abstained. Any other? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ford. Okay, Okay, next on the agenda, speakers on non-agenda items. My apologies that you've waited so long, so patiently. Thank you. And as I always do, as a matter of protocol, individuals who have registered to speak on non-agenda items prior to 8:30 this morning, the custom is 3 minutes to address the board. Total public comment time for items not listed on the agenda is limited to 15 minutes. And as you heard before, on agenda items, speakers have always refrained from statements, remarks, or conduct that otherwise disruptive to the conduct of the county board, or which would be cause a disturbance. So we have 4 people who signed up, and with your indulgence, the board's indulgence, the audience's indulgence, I'll go in the order that people signed up to speak. And so our first speaker today is Mark Schmidt. So if Mr. Schmidt would come forward, give your name and your address, and then is the 3 minutes sufficient?
Yeah, should be. I'll be quick.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
hungry.
Schmidt.
I almost said good morning. Afternoon. My name is Mark Schmidt. I live at 35 West 347 Elder Avenue in St. Charles. I've been a resident of Kane County for about 5.5 years now. And we moved out here from DuPage because it had that kind of rural feel that we really enjoyed in the open space. However, I'm here I want to inform you and make you aware of the issues that this O'Hare modernization plan is having on Kane County, particularly North St. Charles, South Elgin, and parts of Geneva. So currently, so I bring this to your attention because these low-flying planes over these areas, along with the particulates from these planes, to me make this a public health issue. So the majority of this plan for the O'Hare modernization involves taking their diagonal runways. There's one that goes northwest and then one that goes southeast. And these were originally meant to alleviate traffic over the east-western cities on the east and west side. So part of their plan is to decommission these diagonal runways, which means they're now replacing them with parallel runways that run east and west. Currently, there are 4 east-west runways in operation, and there's 2 more slated to be opened, I believe, by 2020. So this issue that I bring forth I think is only going to get worse. So these east-west runways mean that planes now approach O'Hare either from the east or the west. So for us in Kane County, they fly out past the Fox River and then turn around and start their descent. So they start to descend at about 3,500 to about 5,000 feet. And I've measured, so the FAA says that noise defined as 65 decibels, that's intolerable, according to the FAA. Well, I've measured it at my house between 79 and 88 decibels. Now, this is a logarithmic scale. It's not a linear scale, so it's much like the Richter scale for earthquakes. That's a change, that's an exponential change. It's not linear. All right, so I've measured between 79 and 88, and this occurs on certain days every 45 to 75 seconds. The frequency of flights increased by the use of what they call the next generation radar, which is designed to land and depart as many planes as possible. And you can see them lined up. If you look north, you can see them lined up. And as they come into those parallel runways, they stagger them in, and it's quite a sight. So I'm here to ask this board, if you are a member of this O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission, often referred to as the ONCC, if you're not, I urge you to become part of that commission. DuPage County is part of that commission. The village of Wayne is part of that commission, because I feel if we within Kane County don't start to address this and be part of these conversations now, when those additional 2 east-west runways open up, it's going to be too late, because it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. My property value, I feel, has decreased now due to this 80 decibel noise every 45 to 75 seconds when the wind is out of the east or the southeast. I can't even sit on my deck and have a conversation. I work out of my home. I have to close my windows for conference calls. And I live right near 2 forest reserves. It makes it difficult to enjoy our wonderful forest reserves here when they're bombarded with this noise every 45 to 75 seconds on certain days. So I urge you to be part of this O'Hare Noise Compatibility Commission, the ONCC, to take part in this, to learn more about the effects that this is going to have on Kane County residents. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt. You're welcome. Next in the order of people signing up is Jared Weiser. Our probation officer and youth counselor strike is the subject of the talk. And is the 3 minutes, and I do apologize even to say that after you've waited so long.
No, that's fine. 3 minutes should suffice. My name is Jared Weiser. I'm also a Kane County resident. I live at 208 Larsdottir Lane in Geneva, Illinois. I currently work as a youth counselor for the Juvenile Justice Center, and I've been there for over 5.5 years. We're here in regards to this obvious labor dispute that we're going through in terms of contract negotiations and speaking on behalf of a salary progression system. It is a 15-year salary progression system that we attained back in 2013. It was fought hard for. Currently, the talks are suspending this system for much lower percentage raises over the next few years. It should be noted that the starting salary is roughly $38,000 to $40,000 between probation and youth counselors, with a max salary of $60,000 over 15 years. So it takes you, quite a bit of time to reach that. 90% of the youth counselors at my facility are in the lower third of that, meaning step 4 or less. And even individuals who've put in 10 to 12 years of service are also at step 4 or under. There have been common misconceptions that we're seeking a 15-year contract. This is untrue. There's common misconceptions that we're seeking 3.7% on top of max salary. Also untrue. We're seeking to maintain this 3.7%, which is very much needed to progress through the system to get the salary and the money that these individuals, hard-working individuals, deserve. I know 3.7% might seem like a lot, but when you break it down in monetary value, it's $1,700 per year per employee, $142 per month, $35 per week. Not that much. The amount of money needed total to sustain this for the entire 118 people is $200,000 over the course of a 3-year contract. Youth counselors at the Juvenile Justice Center are minimally required to have a bachelor's degree and go through special training to comply with the Prison Rape Elimination Act, which is a state mandate. They also need to go through safe crisis management training and a 9-week training program before they can minimally perform all duties required by a youth counselor at the Juvenile Justice Center. Currently, potentially having staff that are inadequately trained in safe crisis management and other trainings, as well as cognitive behavior training, can potentially have liability not only for this county, but the other 6 counties that we contract through to the Juvenile Justice Center to house their individuals. Currently, residents are given minimally 1 hour of education per day. That is simply not enough, as the standard day of school is 6 hours in the Juvenile Justice Center, as well as the fact that these youth, moreover, should not be confined to their rooms for an extended period of time, especially when they're not in disciplinary action, which is up to 20 hours a day. We have support staff from Kane County Diagnostic Center in there right now, and administration, as well as the Chief Judge herself. However, they cannot continue to work these hours at the Juvenile Justice Center, as they also have to go back to their full-time job duties. The Kane County Diagnostic Center staff also have to go back to completing evaluations for several individuals within the court system. The Chief Judge and the court administrators also have to go back to full-time administering the court system and put their attention toward those matters. Support staff in the probation department, having not been adequately trained in these, can cause a potential liability for these other counties. We need to continue to work hard to get these employees back to work. Hard work and caring employees, so that we can maintain state and federal compliance standards to avoid any potential incidents that will create legal problems for the county and the 16th Judicial Circuit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Weiser. The next person who signed up is Krista Larson. Ms. Larson would come forward. This is also on the subject of court services labor dispute.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Krista Larson. My address is 1980 Tall Oaks Drive, Unit 2B, as in boy, in Aurora. I've been with Kane County for 10 and a half years, first as an adult probation officer and currently as a specialized officer working in the sex offender unit. I am currently on step 3 of the 15-year progression system after 10 and a half years because we negotiated it in 2013. 96% of our staff are not at top pay. My step on step, if I moved to step 4, would equal $1,674 a year. Our 15-year step system does not seek additional 3.7% in addition to top pay. 96% of us are not at top pay, and we require at least a bachelor's degree, if not more, to appropriately perform our duties. The situation is affecting the entire county. This is a public safety issue because about 3,000 people on probation are not being adequately supervised. That is not in addition to the additional approximately 2,000 people that we monitor through court services on pretrial supervision, nor does it include the approximately 700 people that are on reporting conditional discharge, whom are not on probation, but who also receive services from our department. There are also approximately 4,000 people who are required to perform community service by court order, and they also come to see probation officers at our department. This is a community issue. We work every day to make the community in the county safer by appropriately monitoring these individuals. We also work with them to help them with their specialized needs like addiction and mental health issues. We are doing this because we love what we do, and we are trying to save the court system and the jail money in the long run by keeping people out of the system. We dedicate our lives to our communities because the majority of us also live in Kane County. Making this county safer is also going to encourage other businesses and individuals to move into it, which will make the county fiscally sound in the long run as well. Something has to be done to resolve this public safety issue because this is negatively affecting the clients that we serve, the communities that we serve, and us as individuals because we have dedicated our lives to this work and we would like to get back to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Larson. And then finally, Susie Jenkins. And again, Ms. Jenkins, I apologize that after this long wait for me to ask, is the 3 minutes, will that fit what your need is this morning in the statement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
My name is Susie Jenkins. I live at 3346 Sonoma Circle, Lake in the Hills, Illinois. I've been with Kane County, first as a youth counselor and now as a juvenile probation officer. I've been here for 17 years. I'm on step 9. Currently, I'm on step 9, which I make $49,473.79. My issue right now is that we are highly qualified individuals, people with license, people with masters, people with bachelor's degrees, and that's what we are required to do. We're committed, we love what we do, and we want to do what we want to be here. We do not want to be on strike. So I just want to reiterate that. The management attempted to explain to the public that we are on top pay and seeking an additional 3.7 on top of that. We are not all on top pay. There are only 5 people who have been here for 25 plus years that are on top pay. 96% of us are still working towards top pay, and 80% of us are within the first third of our current step. If the increases are eliminated, we will be forced up to our permanent path to top pay. The amount of money needed to meet our current step system is $200,000 for 118 people. The majority of us live in Kane County, and we're also on committees and involved in community organizations so that we can provide quality service to our clients and to the defendants and to the community. We love what we do. We're invested and we're dedicated to our careers in Kane County. The situation is a public safety issue for the county. We have over 3,000 clients that are not being supervised in Aurora, Batavia, Big Rock, Burlington, Campton Hills, Carpentersville, East Dundee, West Dundee, Elburn, Elgin, Geneva, Gilbert's, Hampshire, Caneville, LaFox, Maple Park, North Aurora, Pillsbury Grove, St. Charles, South Elgin, Sugar Grove. This is a situation that affects all of us and all the citizens of Kane County, and it is detrimental to the entire criminal justice system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jenkins. Is there anyone else who would like to step forward to speak? Those are the people who I had signed up. Okay, if not, may I have a motion to adjourn? So moved by Ms. Wegman, second by Mr. Smith. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. We're adjourned.